French President Francois Hollande is visiting the port of Calais in northern France, days after he said he would close the migrants' camp there. President Hollande will meet police, port officials and politicians, but is not expected to visit the camp itself. He's also due to inaugurate an extension of the port. Hollande says he intends to close the sprawling camp and move migrants to reception areas across France. The French president has faced criticism over conditions in Calais, which he acknowledges are not proper. Up to 9,000 migrants live in the jungle amid squalid conditions, many of them hoping to enter the United Kingdom illegally by hiding in lorries crossing the English Channel. Let's get you more on that developing story now. CCTV's Elena Casas is joining us live from Calais. Elena, what's the latest coming out of there, though? What's happening right now?
Well, President Hollande has visited the port behind me to lay the foundation stone of a new extension there, trying to show really that the government cares about the people of Calais and about their concerns over their economy, which used to be reliant on a tourist trade that's very much dried up thanks to the refugee crisis. But this morning he reiterated the announcement that his government is going to close the refugee camp here, he says within a couple of weeks, and that the 9,000 or 10,000 migrants who are currently living there are going to be moved to reception centres around France. They should, he says, have their asylum claims processed within 3 or 4 months, so those who have the right to stay in France will stay and those who don't will be deported. And he says the government will prevent a new camp springing up here, but it's not really a policy that's left many people happy. Refugee advocates say that they are not confident that the government has provided enough housing for all the people who are currently living there, or that they've got a way to make sure that none of the vulnerable children who are living in the camp, for example, actually get the right care and support that they need. And on the other hand, politicians on the right are using the camp in Calais as a convenient angle to attack President Hollande. They've certainly stirred up quite a lot of anti-migrant sentiment here in France, and we're now hearing that a number of the towns and cities where these new reception centres are supposed to be are refusing to accept people from the camp in Calais.
Well, you're talking about some of the centres refusing to accept some of the people who've been living in Calais. So the question perhaps is, what next for the migrants who have been living in Calais for months?
Well, it's a difficult question for the government to resolve. They say they want the people who are living in Calais to be moved into reception centres and to apply for asylum to stay in France, which is of course much easier than seeking to reach Britain. He did also say, though, that Britain must take responsibility for all of these people who are trying to get here. The British border is of course here on French soil rather than in the UK. The people have to apply for asylum here. They don't have the right to travel to the UK without permission, even if they would have the legal right to live there. So, for example, a young Afghan boy who died last week while trying to jump on a lorry and get through the tunnel would actually have had the legal right to move to the UK because he had relatives there, but they're not allowed to make that application in Britain. It has to be made here, and the process is long and bureaucratic. So as a result, both the French government and refugee advocacy groups say the British government has abdicated responsibility for these people, and that as long as there's no other legal way for them to reach Britain, and they continue to want to go there rather than stay in France because they have relatives there, they have a connection with the UK, then if this camp is demolished, then another one will simply grow again.
Right, Elena Casas for us there in Calais.